Alright everybody, so as you can see I have a number of different kinds of relatively quick adhering glues here. I've got some two-part epoxy, then I've got various kinds of super glue or CA glues. Now, you know, super glue is the brand, CA glue is the kind of glue that it is. They call it instant CA adhesion or adhesive a lot of times as well. So you've got that, and I've got black here for knot fills. I've got the, can't remember, this one's medium, thick, and thin. And then I've got two Starbond kits here. And the Starbond kits are actually thin, and they come with adhesive as well. These were on sale on Amazon. This kit here, these and the knot fillers, the black ones, plus the, not the JB but plus these activators, I got from Rockler, and I paid for all this myself. So I'm not sponsored by anybody. Then this is a clear, they call it clear grip. It's a general adhesive. It's flexible and paintable. They always say it holds in seconds, but we're going to talk about that here in a minute. And it is clear. And this is a contact adhesive. So let's talk about what these terms mean a little bit, as far as, you know, I'm not going into the scientific definitions, because honestly I've read those and they do very little bit for me to understand the differences in them. Contact adhesive is going to be more malleable, a little bit more flimsy, and it's not going to sand well in it as a general rule when you're working on a project. So it's going to be something that's going to be hidden. As a general rule, it seems to take a little bit longer for it to adhere and become bonded than the CA glues do, or the epoxies. The epoxies, for instance, they have a 5-minute set time, and then they are, what does it say for, I can't remember what it says for actual hold time. I want to say 24 hours. But it is, you know, it's a relatively quick set time for curing and being able to be workable. CA glues as well, you can accelerate. The good thing about CAs is you can accelerate them. Now, to be fair, with epoxies that are two parts, if you put more hardener, you can actually harden it a little bit faster, but you can only push that so far before the mix is so out of whack that it doesn't work right, and it will never actually harden or cure the way it should. So keep that in mind. You can push those numbers a little bit by mixing a little bit more of hardener than of the resin, but only to a level without it becoming an issue. Whereas CA glues, you can apply activator to either the glue after it's been attached. So you'll see some people take CA glue and they'll put it on a piece, they'll stick it to something and spray the activator or the accelerant on the piece once it's stuck together. Some people will spray like part B and put the glue on part A and then stick it together. I've seen debates on which is the best. I've not found it to be super different in any case. It would probably be determined on how you're going to, how big of a surface, for instance, you're going to do. Like, if you're going to put a lot of glue, you might want to put the accelerant on the back side of a different piece and then lay it on there, versus like if you put it down there and then spray the edges, you're only hardening the edges that might come out a little bit. It does have to have actual contact with the glue itself for it to activate the glue, which makes sense. So like if you had a panel, so like for instance this panel here, if I was to adhere it to this one and none of the glue is squeezing out, if I put all the glue on the back of this panel here, stuck it to there, and then sprayed activator around the edges, it wouldn't do anything. It wouldn't activate anything because there's no glue coming out around the edges. So make sure the activator can be in direct contact with the glue. I did buy this stuff because I do build these. These are my custom pieces of art. This is just one example. I have multiples. And I used super glue, or CA glue, I should better say, on these. And that's where I started buying multiple thicknesses. Thin is really runny, so it's, you know, if you have a really small piece and you put thin on there, it might run off and drip out and run around the edges, but it will tend to adhere just a little bit faster. Whereas medium, I find, is better for like slightly larger pieces that aren't super heavy but have a little bit more surface area, and I can kind of push it on there and squeeze. But you do have to, if you're not using accelerant, you do have to, or activator, you do have to hold it longer. Okay, so keep that in mind. And then thick, of course, will hold a little bit heavier stuff as a general rule, and you do have to hold it a little bit longer if you're not using activator. But you can put a little bit more, kind of squish it on, and you do have to hold it there longer if, once again, not using activator. Activator is pretty expensive, so I don't always use activator. That's why I buy the different thicknesses of CA glues. Epoxy is super awesome for like heavy pieces. In fact, I used epoxy attaching this panel here to this piece of wood here. But you have to like lay it down and or have it clamped somehow, and so it doesn't run, because if you put epoxy, a two-part epoxy on here, the weight of it will shift it downwards unless you stabilize it some way, or you can lay it on its back or whatnot. So, you know, using like painter's tape or clamps or something will help keep that in place, and it will be a stronger bond as a general application for volume, and it's more affordable, I should mention, for larger, heavier areas. Now, technically, could I have used a CA glue on all of this? Yeah, I could. Nothing here is so heavy. CA glue wouldn't, you know, work for that. The two-part epoxies also, I don't know, they seem, and somebody's going to dispute this, and that's fine, they seem to actually harden and be sandable a little bit better, in my opinion, than large volumes of CA glue. I've heard people say that they use CA glue and they don't have a problem with it. Maybe it depends on how fine of a finish you go, because a lot of guys that are using CA glues and stuff like that to fill the void are doing like epoxy resin pours, and they're going up to like, you know, sometimes 1,000 grit or whatever. So maybe if you're going that high, it would work better. I don't know. For me, I found that it seems that epoxy does a little bit better than CA glue for large voids and sanding, for the texture and keeping them nice and hard. So I don't know, but that's my experience. Now, I did buy a bunch of thin. These kits are thin because I do a lot of these small little pieces. And I can just put one little drop of thin and adhere, and it sticks really quick. But once again, you have to be careful. If you use thin, it can run if you over drip. That way I use less, because what I found is that with the medium or the thick, I tend to try to just get one little drop out. It's such a thick consistency, you're using more per drop basically than the thin. That's why I have these thins here for all these little small pieces. Whereas the mediums and thicks really come in with certain parts, but also during woodworking, when I have cracks that I want to secure, I find that the mediums and thicks will help for like bigger areas. If I'm going to leave that, which on this one, I'll finish this edge a different way. But like with these cracks here, maybe a medium would be better than a thin, something like that, because it'll actually get down in there, have more body, and hold a little bit better. Yes, you can put epoxies in here. Once again, you have to start messing with the formula. A little bit less hardener, a little bit more resin, which will take it longer to cure a lot of times, because you've got to have it runnier, and the more hardener you put in it, typically the thicker it gets when you're dealing with two-part epoxies, and it makes it harder to get in there. Not that it's impossible, you can definitely kind of cram it in there with a stick or whatnot, Some guys will use a epoxy, kind of cram it down in there, and then finish it off with a CA on top as a light layer to make it more smooth, and then they can sand it. So once again, like this piece here, you know, big thick crack, maybe a thick CA would be better for this, and the thins for these small cracks if you're just trying to get it down in there and hold it a little bit. Now, which one's stronger for wood separation? There's a big debate about that as well. According to some of the scientific study information on CA glue, it's almost as strong or just as strong as certain kinds of two-part epoxy. I think you just have to work with a little bit of it all and figure it out. Now, I will say that having thins, mediums, and thick options are good, because even though it's kind of expensive to get all these bought, what you'll find is that you'll save money in the long run by having multiple options, like I said, so that you can use thins where you only need thins and you're not getting material building up on top and you're wasting material, because that's an expense right there. So yeah, I just thought I'd go over this a little bit. As a general rule with the two-part epoxies, I tend to use this a little bit depending on what I'm doing. If it's a big pour, I don't do huge pours, I don't do like epoxy tables, but if it's a bigger pour, I'll use this to mix in. And if it's smaller, I will actually use like just a piece of cardboard or wood or something to mix it up on, like a pallet. If you're using silicone devices like this cup here, just make sure that you get all the loose stuff out of there before you mix your epoxy, because if you don't, the new epoxy you make will set and take these flakes of the old epoxy out, and it could potentially ruin the look, or actually make it clumpy and hard to sand and hard to have a good product in the end. And as you can see, I haven't fully cleaned this one out, which is one of the hard parts of using silicone cups like this. A silicone tray is a little bit better sometimes, a little bit easier to clean out, but yeah, so just kind of keep that in mind as well. And I hope that helps you guys out, kind of make some decisions about the adhesives you want to use in your woodworking for different things. And we will talk to you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.